CENIC, thank you for coming out for the last session of the afternoon before we all go to the university. I'd like to introduce to you the two speakers for this next session, which is Broadband Improvements, Drive Transformative Pedagogy. We have Jason Borgen, CTO of Santa Cruz County Office of Education. He's been a trainer, a curriculum technology leader in Silicon Valley school districts, and now a CTO. And we also have Antonio Romayor, Jr. He's the CTO of El Centro Elementary School District, also involved in leadership with the Imperial Valley SETPA group, the Imperial Valley Telecommunications Authority, and the Imperial Valley Q Computer Using Educators board member. Gentlemen.
Thanks, Enoch. Welcome, everyone. As Enoch said, I work for the Santa Cruz County Office of Education. I'm Jason Borgen. I've been in this role for a whole 5 months. Prior to this, I was actually technology and curriculum director for a very small school district right in the heart of Silicon Valley, which I'll talk and allude to a little bit later. We did have about only 500 students or so, very, very small, and so we did want to really innovate in our classrooms. It was a K-8 school district. I also am vice president of Computer Using Educators, also known as Q, and we just came back from their 3-day conference in Palm Springs that ended on Saturday night. And so that's all about K-20 educators talking about innovation in their classrooms and their schools and districts. But this is really about how do we change the paradigm of our classrooms today? What does it look like, and how does it look different than the 20th century? We're in 20% through the 21st century, and we're still trying to decide what these 21st century skills really are. And let's kind of talk about how we really kind of change and transform our classrooms with digital tools and broadband connectivity. And I want to start with a project. How many people grew up in California? Okay, good. So if you did grow up in California, you all did this one project, the 4th grade mission project. Play-Doh.
Most of you.
Actually, mine was made out of real stucco, cardboard, and real tile. But guess who actually did it? My dad. I just watched him while I played Nintendo, I think. But nowadays, how do we use modern day tools to give students the skills to create, to design, and learn the content they need around history projects such as this? Here is one example that's been happening just down the street in San Diego. This is a mission project done by a student in San Diego, a 4th grader. And
welcome to Mission San Diego de Alcala. I'm Father Sarah, and I founded this mission in 1769. It's the first of the 21 California missions. Out front, what you see are the bell tower, which is also called the campanario, and the diagonal buttress walls, which are for earthquake stability. Come on with me, and I'll show you around.
So does anybody know what he used to make this?
Church, there was a...
Does anybody know what tool he used? Minecraft. This was built from the ground up, 100% in Minecraft, with little square blocks of all different colors. He built his model, his digital model, using a computer-aided design game called Minecraft. We know his dad didn't do this. In fact, what other skills are embedded into this besides just building a model and understanding missions? There's speaking skills, there's computer skills, there's navigation skills, and then there's the ability to have an authentic audience and publish it to the real world, which was not possible 20 years ago, even 15 years ago. So why isn't this happening at all our classrooms every day? And we're going to talk a little bit about what this really means in our classrooms today and how you need to leverage broadband connectivity to make this happen. Thanks to the CENIC network, by the way. So really what this is about, and our central question for this afternoon, is how do we prepare our K-12 students for the future? What skills and why do we do this? What do they need in their daily lives in order for them to be college and career ready in the 21st century? And as many of you know, our kindergartners actually today will be 85 in the 22nd century. So now we got to start preparing students for the 22nd century as well. These are a list of top 12 jobs that didn't exist 12 years ago, top 10 jobs. So I like number 3 the best, actually, Zumba instructor. So 12 years ago, Zumba wasn't really there. And so as things evolve, we need to make sure we have skills necessary for students today. The ability to teach students how to obtain these skills to obtain these jobs. iOS developer, big data architect, cloud service specialist. There's a few different cloud service vendors out there at this conference. 15 years ago, that was not a thing. Again, how are we going to leverage cloud services in 10 years? What's going to happen to our data centers in 10 years? We need to prepare for our students to have these jobs in cloud data center development. And so what needs to happen in the classroom in order for them to be fully prepared? Well, we don't have to start from scratch. Has anybody heard of the International Society for Technology and Education, or ISTE? ISTE is the largest members nonprofit organization specifically for technology and education. They put on a conference every year at the end of June where they have 20,000 educators, K-20, all learning about technology and education, how to support our classrooms. They came up with a list of standards of what should students be doing with technology, what should teachers and educators be doing with technology, and what should administrators be doing with technology. They came up with these 7 buckets for students, and they refresh these standards every 6 or 7 years based upon input from industry, input from colleges, and input from K-12 as well. And so the buckets are empowered learners. How do we help students become empowered learners with technology? Digital citizenry. Knowledge constructor. How do we help students build their own knowledge at their fingertips? Teachers today do not need to be content experts. The content's at their fingerprints. They need to be learning experts. How do we help our teachers continue to help students become lifelong learners and want to learn and motivate them to learn and help students gain the knowledge they need to gain in order to be successful in college and careers? Innovative designer. Continue to create. We want students to be able to create. Right? Software development is going to be the most needed career, they're saying, in the next 10 years. We're pulling software developers from all over the world in order for us to meet the demand in America. How do we help our students today become software developers and creators? Communicators, global collaborators. We're going to talk a little about these things later. So all these buckets is where we need to focus our energy in K-12 and K-20 schools as well. Are your colleges and universities supporting these efforts? And if we think about students today, you think about the student you see outside, the student you see if you have kids, the students you see in the mall, in your schools, even the college students, they are hands-on. They like to be interactive. They're focused on things they want to be focused on anyway. They want access to content knowledge, but the relevant stuff, not the stuff that was important to us when we were younger, but the stuff that's important to them. And fast-paced as well. Every year there's an annual survey that goes out called the Speak Up Survey. It's run by an organization called Project Tomorrow, a nonprofit, and they surveyed over 300,000 students across the nation. And this is kind of the results of that survey. I just want to highlight a few things on here. It's interesting to see this. 77% of high school students say they prefer to read a printed book. But 66% of students in K2 say reading is best for them on a screen. So even that difference between our K2 students today and our high school students, there is a generation gap in between those as well. It could be developmental as well. But again, there are differences in age groups, even from the K3 to, 9th graders. That's a 7-year span or so. 91% of students, 91% of students have a smartphone. Chromebook use in high school increased 3 times in 3 years. 3-fold. It's a ubiquitous device that's cheap, affordable, and easy to manage by IT departments. And has access to cloud-based tools. I'm sure most of you all understand Chromebook. Only for 99% of the content is available online. That's it. You go on a Chromebook, you need connectivity for 99% of the content you do. So these students, the devices increase 3 times. Are our schools connected? That's what we need to talk about. And this data doesn't just stay with Speak Up. I just took this picture earlier of a session. This is what students are doing. Homework, reading, research, writing, online. Is it the same type of homework they did 20 years ago? Maybe, but now they're doing it online. Social media, video games, communication. Same things we did 20 years ago, it's just a different way of doing things. However, this was a picture of a classroom taken 100 years ago. And if you go to some class schools today, you'll see schools look exactly like that. Classrooms that look exactly like that. The clothes may have changed a little bit. But even though how students learn and acquire knowledge and the skills needed for students to succeed in our 21st century digitally literate workforce, schools have not changed. Classrooms have not changed. And it's a cyclic process, right? Some people blame the teacher prep programs. Some people blame the school boards. Whatever, we can't keep blaming. We need to create solutions. Again, this is one of my schools in Portola Valley. Hands-on, interactive. Students are focused. Access to content knowledge. It's very fast-paced. Students here are collaborating on a lab report. One lab report through all 4 in the science classroom. All on Chromebooks that they take home 24/7. And we have 25 kids connected, streaming video in the classroom at once. In this classroom, next door, 25 videos, streaming video at once. You need high-end connectivity for that to happen. And so now, speaking of interactive, I don't want to talk the talk and not walk the walk. So I'm going to have you do a little interactive exercise. So take out your phones or your computer really quick. And you may have seen tools being used in the class. You may not. I want to hear what you know about what tools are already being used. What transformative tools are being used in the classroom? What do you know about? What do you hear about? What have you seen in your schools or your universities? So go to menti.com, MENTI.com, and use the code 20005. And I'm going to go there right now and open it up. So a lot of coding tools, video conferencing, Remind, which is a messaging tool, Menti. How many people have used this tool before? Anybody? It's a great instant feedback tool, assessment tool. Adobe Spark, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Content management system. Kahoot, which is a great assessment tool as well. Equatio, which does math equations for you. VR, visual reality, and augmented reality. There's this iPad app, augmented reality tool. You put it on a kid, they wear a shirt, and it actually shows inside a human body. And they can actually point out things directly using augmented reality. Zoom, which is video conferencing. HyperDocs, which creates a paperless workflow, an online curriculum. It's like an online scavenger hunt. So there's already lots of things happening piecemeal. How do we organize this and create a commonality and planning with our teachers? That's a very important part of the leadership realm of moving a school or district forward, is create a plan with all these things and articulated approach to what to be used at different grade levels and how are we going to evaluate these products for effectiveness and efficacy. So, we want to try to integrate technology to transform schools, not to just replace what we did 20 years ago. Has anybody heard of the Santur Model? Okay, the Santur Model is an instructional methodology. It was developed by a researcher, Dr. Ruben Puentedera. I forgot where he's from, but you can look it up. It's a research strategy on how educators integrate technology. The first step of technology integration is just substitute the physical for the digital. For example, taking a worksheet, scanning it, and making it an online worksheet. It has no functional difference than the physical worksheet. It's just an online worksheet now. That's substituting the technology. And then you move over to augmentation. Some functional improvement, like an online geoboard you may have seen, where somebody can, on an iPad app, you can actually move rubber bands digitally instead of actually physically. A little bit functional enhancement. It might give you a score even. It might auto-grade you, etc. But it's not really transformative way of providing instruction. Then modifying. You're modifying the technology or modifying the lesson to really create a new opportunity with the technology. For example, having students work on the same document together in Google Docs. That was not really possible 10 years ago, but it's not necessarily 100% transformative. Then you get into redefinition of the task, completely redefining a lesson or a task in a classroom, such as having students work collaboratively on a Google slideshow with a school in Saudi Arabia, where they're working on it and they're collaborating on that slideshow, and then they're getting a peer expert in the field to review it, like an engineer. Maybe it's a slideshow of a lab report, and they have an engineer actually review it and put their thoughts on it. That's redefining your classroom practice. That's completely a task that was inconceivable 15, 20 years ago. But now with the tools and digital technologies and connectivity, it can be done in the classroom. And how do we help teachers develop this pedagogy around redefining our transformative classroom instructions? It does start with the tools, but it also starts with a mindset. And so let me tell you a little bit about the district I came from. I was at for 3 years, and how we really changed the paradigm of teaching and learning. Portola Valley School District. Has anybody ever know where Portola Valley is? Okay. Portola Valley is a K-8 school district, about 600 students. We have two schools. It's an interesting model, a K-3 school for the little ones and a 4-8 school. And the 4-8 school is kind of broken up into two schools in itself, a 4-5, and then a middle school for 6-8. We are basic aid. Those people who are not in K-12, basic aid means all of our funding comes from property taxes because the average home price in Portola Valley is $4.1 million. Most of our parents, a lot of our parents are executives for .coms, VCs, Stanford professors, Stanford doctors. And we also have an interesting partnership with East Palo Alto, which is mostly socioeconomic disadvantaged. There was a lawsuit back in the early 80s that saying the west part of San Mateo County was segregated too much. So in order to desegregate it, they created a partnership with East Palo Alto, where mostly Hispanic students and low socioeconomic students lived. And so 10% of our student body actually gets bused in the 7 miles from East Palo Alto, which is about an hour each way trip in Bay Area traffic. So they spend about 2 hours on a bus every day. And so that's a whole nother project we looked at. We were working with Stanford to research Wi-Fi in that school bus and give them activities to do on the bus specifically. We had a wonderful foundation, obviously with the parent community. So we were one-to-one iPads in grade 3. And that was just interesting conversation with the third grade teachers, and the ability to teach students how to be proficient on specific devices and applications, and one-to-one Chromebooks in grades 4-8 and first and second grade. And our fourth through 8th grade is actually one-to-one take-home 24/7, where we actually help students develop a digital responsibility around the digital citizenship efforts. Tony's going to talk a little about his district, which is a little bit different.
Good afternoon, everybody. When Jason and I discussed sharing with you today, we wanted to contrast two parts of the state, both that benefited from broadband connectivity, and discuss those successes and those wins. So my district is El Centro Elementary School District. I'm the CTO there. As a little bit about my school district up on the screen, 5,400 kids, TK through 8. We have 12 schools, including a small charter home school. Title I, 11 schools, for those that understand technology, California ed tech speak. And also 83% of our students are socioeconomic disadvantaged. So if you just pause there and reflect on that, the type of families that we serve, some of them depend on our lunch program to be able to have that lunch meal, right? So it's a different dynamic from where Jason and I work. However, in El Centro, although we're rural, our district has been connected to 10 gig from CENIC to the classroom IDF, at least that wing at 10 gig for the last 2 years. And it helps a lot that, the COE in our region happens to hold a contract to K12HSN. Shout out to them, they're in the room. But it also speaks to the relationships that we're able to build as technology leaders, such as the relationship we have with CENIC and the connectivity that we have. We're also able to leverage that connectivity of 101 Chromebooks throughout our district, and also looking at that research in regards to how our younger kids prefer touch compared to our older kids and the interactability of that device. And we have shared iPad carts in the lower grades. Overall, I guess what I want to discuss is El Centro's picture is our students have these amazing opportunities. As a leader, I make sure that we're creating the world's best learning experiences and environments. That's what I do every day when I go to work and when I have strategic partnerships like we do with CENIC. So we discussed with Jason that if they didn't have this connectivity as we were prepping for today, what would their experience look like? It was said earlier in the conference, right, in regards to what community is defined as now, right? Is it defined as, where you're at, or is it defined by connectivity? And if it's defined by connectivity, then our role is to make the world as flat as possible. That is our role. And it's all about connectivity. That connectivity is now king. It's not necessarily that zip code. And that's the benefit that we can provide utilizing the broadband that our students have available through CENIC and through other funding mechanisms that Jason's going to talk a little bit about. So as you can see, different parts of the state, however, both benefiting from high speed, high stable connectivity, and we see the student outcomes in the products. So we're going to get into that in a bit. Jason.
Again, very different, but depending upon your infrastructure, both from the outside and the inside, you don't want students, you want teachers to struggle, or they're going to resist. And so this is what we dealt with in Portola Valley. Teachers had a wonderful video to put on YouTube, but then they always got that. And that kept going and going. Students laughed. How many people have ever seen this before, right? The buffer, the famous buffer, the buffer circle?
Not those connected to CENIC, Jason. That never happens.
And so we had issues. Teachers wanted to use technology, albeit, maybe only augmentation, not transformative, but they wanted to start using technology. But this was the big headache for them. And so then something happened. The state released, through a partnership with the K12 high-speed network, monies to improve broadband connectivity on the CENIC network across the state. And just to give you a little bit picture, Portola Valley, when I got there in 2015, we had a 10 megabit cable connection to one site and a completely separate 10 megabit cable connection to the other site. Not on any research-based network, just consumer-based cable. And that's why we started seeing the buffer. And they said, what can we do? What can we do? Well, let's at least increase it to 25 meg cable. So I got there and increased to 25 megs, and that still wasn't good enough because we had 500 kids, and every kid wanted to connect at some point. And so thank goodness there was the Broadband Infrastructure Improvement Grant that came about 4 years ago. And right now we're in wave 4 to invest California investment into rural places and places where districts cannot connect or have low connectivity. Number one, the number one reason driving that, unfortunately, but it was pushing it, was the statewide assessment, the high stakes assessment, because that was done online on the computer. But I say that was leverage to increase broadband so teachers and students can actually learn on a day-to-day basis. And so within a year, Portola Valley worked closely with K12 high-speed networks and the vendors who received the RFP for that network. And we couldn't do it alone because we had proponents of increased connectivity in Portola Valley, but we also had completely the other side of the spectrum. People who thought Wi-Fi connectivity was causing tumors and brain damage. And first graders and second graders should not be in a classroom with a WAP, with a wireless access point. We're probably one of the first districts in the country to actually get forced to put by parent lobbyists to our school board, actual kill switch on all of the WAPs in K1. A little switch to be able to turn it off when the teacher was not using it. And So we couldn't have done it with our internal money because of that push, because of that dilemma. So thank goodness we applied for the grant and received a 1 gigabit connection to the CENIC backbone, connecting to our node site, which is the San Mateo County Office of Education. And many districts in California are doing the same thing. The small school districts that can't afford construction costs, that can't afford the architecture of a network like this. And there is a little bit of money left for smaller districts as well that are not connected still to receive this money, I believe. Is that correct? And we have 2 people in the audience who kind of help oversee and administer the BIIG, Terry Sanders and Luis Wong from the K-12 high-speed network. So if you know any rural districts who are low connectivity, please have them contact the BIIG program. Wonderful, wonderful program, and it really moved us into the future. And it's not just about preparing for next year. It's preparing for 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, future-proofing your network. Because if your teachers are not using it now, they're going to need it in 5 years once they do get trained. Because you want students to have 24/7 access to content, to delivery, to information, like we do in our worlds. Right? That's what our world's like. We're connected. Sometimes we don't want to be connected 24/7, but we are. Students need access now to digital tools. Many textbooks now in the K-12 environment are online or have online enhanced materials. And you have equity issues if the students don't have devices at home and some do. Because those students are going to be able to access that advanced features and the others won't. And then you're going to make the achievement gap even larger. It also creates anytime peer-to-peer collaboration around academia, not just social interactions, but if that is structured and scaffolded for students to learn how to speak and have conversations around professional content, that can happen anytime, anywhere. And really it goes about, there's no such thing as learning has to happen within the brick and mortar schoolhouse anymore. Learning can happen 24/7. How do teachers help enhance and promote that? And so I'm going to talk about a bunch of tools we use that's used in both schools. Even though we're completely, vastly different, our schools and districts are using the same tools because and helping students develop the same skills. Because we have the leadership and guidance and support of this statewide network and of our regional networks and local networks. And so paperless workflows. So many of you guys have used learning management systems, especially at the university level. Google Classroom is actually a free pseudo learning management system provided by Google through their G Suite product, which is free for K-12 schools. Unlimited data. And we actually have third graders actually on Google Classroom on a day-to-day basis. We did mandate it. We mandated at the 6th to 8th grade level. Every teacher posts every single homework assignment in Google Classroom, and what it does is create a paperless workflow. Parents can opt to get nightly or weekly emails of all the assignments in history, and there's the ability for teachers to easily glance who's not done and who has done the assignment. And they can easily dive into the work and give comments directly on there. I'm going to show you an example of something that's been sent out to 2nd graders in Google Classroom. It also creates templates in digital worksheets as well. And when I say worksheets, I'm not talking about a traditional worksheet. This is a 2nd grade classroom where a 2nd grade teacher posted a Google Slide presentation of multi-step word problems. Every student had their name on the slide, and at home for homework, they had to find their slide and write a multi-step math problem. Then the next day, the teacher would present this, and they would walk through each student's multi-step math problem. So each math problem had to have a picture, how they solved it, and the text of the math problem. So you can see all the different students are here, and when Jasper started working on his, he saw Kai working on his. So they can see each other working in real time and trying to find this out. And they actually had on a whiteboard take a picture of their answer and put it on here at the end. No paper involved except this whiteboard. And they were able to archive this digital tool. And this is all pushed out and organized through Google Classroom. Another tool I want to show you here is this was a self-portrait done in art class. The teacher just put on a background for the students, and the students actually had to take a picture of themselves and draw over the self-portrait. And the cool thing is, because it's a Google drawing, they could actually go into the revision history and see how their thing evolved. and they can reflect on the whole thing through the self-portrait. Again, all pushed out through Google Classroom. World experts. Sometimes it's hard to find expertise in your region, in your area. And sometimes teachers or students want to connect with other expert students who are not like them. You want students to build cultural literacy, right? Many careers students will be obtaining once they jump to the career zone. They're going to have to collaborate with their peers 100% virtually. So why not teach them effective virtual collaboration now? Of course, we couldn't do this before the BIIG grant, right? We would get the buffering. We couldn't video conference with other classrooms or with engineers or with authors. There's a whole organization called Skype and Author, where hundreds of authors of literature, children's books, put their name on this wiki, and teachers can connect with them and have them actually video conference in with their children. There's a few other pieces as well. California State Parks, through a grant, has a program called Parks Online Resources for Teachers and Students, where park rangers out in all the state parks in California will video conference into classrooms to talk about the state park, to talk about conservation and ecology of that state park. There's a organization called NEPRIS that actually connects industry leaders with classrooms all across the country, the world. And then, of course, one of the fun parts about this is actually kids connecting with other classrooms through what they call mystery conferences or mystery hangouts or mystery Skypes. And what happens during a mystery Skype is a teacher, has anybody heard of a mystery Skype or a mystery hangout? So a teacher connects with another teacher around the globe, and they say, let's video conference in at 3 o'clock at this time or 2 o'clock at this time. The students have to ask yes/no questions to each other's classroom and try to guess where they're from, around cultural identity, around geography. And what you see kids interacting with Google Maps and trying to zone in a place. We had a 4th grade class do a mystery Skype or mystery Google Hangout with a classroom in Toronto, Canada. And the one question, does anybody know what the one question they asked that they knew they were from Canada? Do you like hockey? And everybody just said, yeah! And so they were able to narrow down the country through Canada that way. But again, it's interactive, it's engaging, and it teaches them a little bit about geography, and interactive geography, not just looking at a plain map, but they actually can zoom in now on a Google map and get deeper and go to Street View and look around the area and really find out a lot about that. But again, if the teacher's not trained on how to use these tools, then they're not going to do that because they're going to do it how they learned. Let's just get a map out. Let's get an atlas out. How do we really integrate these new methodologies into engaging our students? And then there's a program that actually started by an English teacher in Wisconsin called the Global Read Aloud Project, where teachers in the spring vote on a book to read in different grade level spans, and from October 1st through November 15th every year, those grade levels all across the world read the same book, read the same chapter every week. And then they have collaborative projects online every week where one classroom can collaborate on the book, a literature book with another classroom. We had students in 5th grade collaborate with a classroom in Israel around one of the 5th grade books and talk about it and collaborate on it using tools like Flipgrid, like Google Slides, etc. Adobe Spark. Somebody put Adobe Spark. Adobe Spark is an easy-to-use digital storytelling tool. It allows students to reflect, to showcase their content acquisition. This is a digital Spark developed by 3rd graders after they did a science project.
Hello, our task was to lift the tiger out of a cage by using a 2 compound machine. This was the design that we used for the machine. We made some changes that you will see at the end of this video. We tried this pulley, but it did not work because it was too slow. And we tried to add on to the pulley by adding more pieces. Oh no! Then we had a problem. The magnet would not fit in the tiger's harness. So we tried to cut holes in the harness so the magnet would fit. Then success, we finally lifted the tiger out of the cage without harming it. We learned how to make a compound machine, and we used our imagination. Amelia had so much fun. Yay! Hi, I'm...
So sometimes people have the misconception that technology isolates us. There is no isolation in that technology tool. And they're able to reflect. They're able to guide their reflection. And before they even had to reflect, think about all the different learning modalities involved. They had to speak. They had to write. They had to act. They had to collaborate and work together interpersonally. And then they had visuals, how to have visuals to represent this. Much more meaningful than just writing a paragraph. Much more engaged, much deeper in the learning content. And you just heard that one girl, she's a natural. You know, maybe she doesn't like science, but she probably likes to act and likes to speak. And that got her a chance to connect with the engineering process. So video editing. Video editing can now be done in the cloud thanks to high connectivity and tools like WeVideo. WeVideo is a collaborative. You don't need to do it on one device anymore. Kids can have multiple devices and collaborate in real time on video editing. All completely 100% online using the WeVideo tool. I'm going to show you kids who are doing poetry in a 5th grade classroom. And this is the student's poem she wrote. She actually had to develop a visualization, a movie of her poem. So again, multiple modalities to ensure acquisition. Produced and written by that 5th grade student. So again, not only she has to write the poem, she has to actually find visual representations and have the technical skills to put it together in a video or a movie. Right? This is the 21st century. Not only do you have to have the content skills, you also have to have the technical skills to actually publish something. Virtual reality. Now, virtual reality, has only been around for, in the consumer market for not very long. And now it's happening in our schools our K-12 schools across the country and the world. And thanks to a tool called Google Expeditions, there's already preloaded what we call virtual field trips to give to students. And teachers can actually make sure students are on task. Has anybody seen or used Google Expeditions? Google Expeditions actually, the teacher has a teacher iPad or tablet to launch an expedition to different places. And let's see, and here's an example. They can launch expeditions to rocks and minerals, gems of the Grand Canyon. And different places, different points of interest, there's little descriptions where students have to read. And the cool thing is on the teacher's view, they see where every kid is actually viewing. There's a little dot for every student. So you can see if a student's way off task and not looking at zoning in on one specific area. But there's hundreds of expeditions already developed for students to actually take a field trip to the Grand Canyon, to the pyramids, undersea. Especially talk about minimizing the equity gap. Those students who have no money to travel, who've never been out of the state, never been out of Imperial Valley, get some opportunity to see these things. Our students in Portola Valley go to Paris for the weekend. Not in El Centro.
No, not in El Centro.
And not their educators in Portola Valley, but unfortunately. But this is ability for students to really own the learning, own the picture. They're not focused on just the picture. They can move their head and see different areas, a 360-degree view. But again, it's still your view and somebody else's. We want students to be creators, right? Well, actually, there is something called Google VR Tour Builder, where students can build their own virtual reality tours. And this is an example of actually students in East Palo Alto who don't get to go places creating their own virtual tour of science camp when they went to science camp. So if you put this in a VR viewer, you can actually do real VR. So this is actually students taking pictures of themselves drinking hot sauce, which is probably not the best one, but you can actually see there's a information task, and it's a little reflection, right? Everyone eating, having a good time. Next section, them cooking, right? You can see the different hot spots. They help set up food and organize it. So now the student is actually telling a story using virtual reality, reflecting on what happened using virtual reality. Who would have thought that was possible 10 years ago, right? This is instructed in the classroom. This is really true transformative teaching. You're developing a virtual reality reflection or a virtual reality story rather than just a narrative, a one-page narrative that's very one-dimensional. And this student actually had to take they had to have a 360 camera, take 360 pictures, which they have in the district, and actually then take the pictures, decide what they're going to use, put it in the software, which is all 100% online, and build their tour. Again, 100% free. Google VR Tour Builder. And then there's video discussions, right? In olden days, we used to write a prompt in text and discussion prompts, and then respond with text and lots of text. Well, we also need to, again, teach students how to have oral conversations with each other and respond orally as well. Flipgrid. Flipgrid is another great free tool, freemium tool that can be used for a teacher to put a prompt in and students respond via the web camera. Very simply. And teachers then go back and actually give students feedback, individual students feedback. Only that one student sees that feedback, all embedded into the software Flipgrid. For example, there's this one prompt about ideal water parks. What are your most ideal water parks and why? And students had to give a persuasive reason why, orally. Okay? And many of us struggle with speaking orally and articulately through these processes. This gives the students the opportunity to develop their argument, write it down, and then actually represent it orally. Then they can respond to others orally with the webcams. And of course, they get to have fun with these little masks and avatars and things like that. Or for anonymity as well, depending upon what mom and dad say. And of course, you know, I saw on the Mentimeter earlier, somebody said PHP and coding. Yes. California Department of Ed just this past school year, adopted California computer science standards. And just give a hand for the folks who are part of that committee, because it's a big upbringing. So let's give a hand for the computer science standards. I'm not sure if anybody in this room, but K-12 computer science standards, teaching students computer science at every grade level. Academic standards at every grade level. That will be implemented in the next few years. And yes. Yeah. And that's where there needs to be calibration done and professional training and you know, again, with local control now, every district kind of does it on their own, how they want to. And which is, you know, there's some benefits to that, but there could be also some cons to that as far as, you know, statewide or regional calibration as well. But as we move forward, a lot of the vendors typically who provide this content as curriculum will provide training, and they're the ones they want to calibrate with. You know, on an ongoing basis, I think working with regional providers or nonprofits or local providers to provide the support moving forward.
And I'd add, Leanne, that as an organization, it's difficult. As a school district, it's difficult because you have different needs, right, in every classroom. So the best thing you can do is make sure that you have a consistent professional development plan. In fact, Jason and I were discussing how in COSN's New Horizon report, the new version of that, they discuss the difficulty of having fidelity of implementation when it comes to professional development. So it is a national issue, I think. It's not just a local California issue. However, there are things you can do, consistent PD, district office leadership or agency leadership, and then explaining why you're doing those things, those clear visions and how they connect, and making sure we're addressing all students, if it's SPED students, if it's mainstream students, or what it may be, and finding kind of accessibility for those students that need them. For the most part, elementary teachers, at least that's my experience, are willing to come on board if they have the sufficient support structures. The inconsistencies, they always have some of those outliers you're going to, but at least some minimum expectations. And I think if you're able to set those and you're able to accomplish those, explain why, El Centro's had success in that, and other districts have as well because they apply that model.
And part of it has to do with revamping the evaluation process as well for teachers. And that's a whole nother subject because of teacher unions as well.
You're lobbying now. Yeah.
Sometimes that happens. All right. So anyway, computer science, lots of tools that happen even at kindergarten. We teach our kindergartners no reading at all, but they can do computer science. I'm drawing a blank on that coding program for kindergartners we use. That's code. They have a Our Code one.
Oh yeah, Our Code we use Tinker, and
Yeah,
then
for
yeah.
kindergartens. There's one. I'm drawing a blank what it's called, but there's one for kindergartners with no reading. Our Code. That's the way to get started. That's why Computer Science Education Week is there. Hattie Patrov, who's the creator of the Our Code and Computer Science Education Week, is that amazing stuff with code.org. So check it out.
Before I go into the sample of computer science, I wanted to talk about when Jason was describing the virtual field trips or VR, augmented reality, whatever flavor you're doing, Google Expeditions. I have skin in the game, as we've discussed before. I have two boys, and they're in our district, and so I get invited over to do career day. It's other duties as a scientist, as a dad, and also get invited over to do lessons because the teachers talk to each other and they say, hey, you know what? Sammy's dad or Manny's dad will do a lesson for you. You don't have to worry about it. Just invite them over. When we do those events, when I ask the students, anywhere in the world, where would you like to go? And you let the silence kind of become the magic. And they're anywhere? Say, yeah, anywhere you'd like to go. That's the power that connectivity provides those students. Some of these students don't even have an idea because nobody's ever told them that they can leave El Centro and Imperial Valley. Or they haven't. Right? They haven't at all. They've seen it maybe through TV or through experiences or through social media, but they haven't themselves. So it's a powerful experience. We were discussing the geography of where people might go. In our area, I mean, they might go to Mexico, they might go to Arizona. Some of them are fortunate enough to come to San Diego. But I see it through the lens of the blessed life that my boys live, but not everybody does that. So it's great, the different examples that Jason was sharing. I get invited over to Computer Science Week, and in my son's class, this is why you're going to hear somebody say, Daddy, Daddy, Daddy. I joke that it's not because I told the kids to call me that. And but pay attention to the expressions, if you would, please. It's a short video, it's less than 30 seconds. The expressions of the students, and then we're just going to talk a little bit about that experience here in Computer Science Week. All right, so here you go. What grade do you think that class is? I don't think I gave that away. I hear second, third. Okay, throw up your fingers. What you think? Let me see. Let me see. We got some consensus here, some groupthink happening. I wish I had a gift to give away. Ding, 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 right there, number one. That's a first grade classroom. First grade class. Yeah, first grade classroom. How many hours do you think it took to get to this point? Go ahead and throw it up. How many? 5 hours, 5 hours. How many hours do you think it got to get to this point? Hey, thank you very much. Well, give it away with an hour of code, right? But it did take about 30, 45 minutes. 30, 45 minutes. Block coding, a different approach. However, if you read the research, we were discussing this earlier, career exploration, what students are exposed to early on. Some people think, well, females don't get that many exposure, males do because males prefer. It's just, you saw in the video at the end, the young girl was, I did it, and so were boys. It's transferable, that skill, that success. You never know, we might have created an experience, a moment where some of them might understand the importance of computer science and how they could use it or what they'd like to do. The students, in less than an hour, were able to create that work. And now we're having more and more teachers in our district see the value of it. We're sharing success story that I can start as early as first grade. And by the way, I did that lesson in kindergarten. I just didn't show you that video. And the students did as well. Did it take a little bit longer? Sure. It took some hugs and it took a little bit more of teacher, but we got it done. Yeah. Jason.
And, one thing you might have noticed in that classroom compared to kindergartners or first graders 10, 15 years ago is the audio level, right? You would have said 15 years ago, why is it so loud in there? Well, nowadays, principals walk through and they see a quiet class, and they're worried that the class is so quiet. Or they should be. Because it shouldn't be the teacher in front of the classroom lecturing while the kids are sitting there trying to absorb the information. It should be the kids interacting, connecting with each other, connecting with the content. And that's a shift to how we remember going to school. But the research says the students do best by constructing their own meaning of knowledge. And again, that needs to happen in a classroom where there's students talking, collaborating, working together at their own level, in small groups, in big groups. And there's many now programs that many of your school districts have adopted that do promote that. Thus, this is why this is a normal classroom, somewhat.
But my son's in there, so I don't know how normal it is, but yeah.
But he mentioned, I'm not sure if he mentioned Tinker was being used. Mm-hmm. So Tinker is just one software. MIT developed a software called Scratch, you may have heard of. Kids love to build their own games in Scratch. Free, 100% free. There's curriculum that goes along with this. Imagine students actually are trying to learn about Mars and they have to create a character or a person to escape and go to Mars on a spaceship. But they have to not just build that and draw that, they have to code that animation. Again, tying science content to coding, to computer science. But computer science is not just coding. Don't get confused. Computer science is also learning how machines work, learning how computers work, learning about hardware, learning about web design, learning about graphic design. All of those elements are being happened and are embedded in the computer science standards. And there's many ways to happen. And, as you said, you need the right facilitators to make it happen. And a lot of our schools don't have that. And how do we prep? How do we prep higher ed to prep the teachers to work in these content areas that never existed 20 years ago? Right? And so we need to really think outside the box to make this happen. We need to have policies in place, advocacy in place to train these educators and get them ready for these classrooms of the future. But because we don't know what our students will be doing in 15, 20 years. My son is in first grade. He's going to be graduating high school in 2030. And so what the heck's going to be, is he going to major in? I have no idea. And I tell him that, I don't know. He wants to be a computer programmer. What kind of program is going to be involved at that point? I don't know. What's it going to look like? Can we have AI do it at that point? I don't know. But we need to prepare for the unknown and help students design and build the skills to be collaborative, to be creative, and continue to stay up in the forefront with the new technologies, not just leave them in industry, but bring them inside of our classrooms. So with that, that's all I have on my soapbox. Thanks.
Any questions?
Hello? We have some time. Anybody have any questions for panel members? Yes.
I think it would be really interesting, and this probably exists, and I'm not a teacher, so I don't know about it, but do you guys have a clearinghouse of a lot of these resources, or where can parents kind of access them to maybe even bring them to, key teachers or the PTA or?
So, great question. I think there's a lot of nonprofits and organizations like Q are trying to build some resources around that. The state used to do that, but then the money shifted from statewide projects to, let's do it at the state level or the regional level. Let's just give all that money, instead of providing money at the state level to provide these clearinghouses and resources, let's give that money to local districts. So that's kind of what I see as at least one of the downsides of the local control movement is now there's nothing happening at the regional or statewide level to supporting the effective apps and the effective tools and the effective pedagogies out there.
In El Centro, what we've done is we inform parents through training. And we also maintain an approved application list at our district. And what we do is we've revamped the way we communicate our legal annual notices to our parents. So we show them where that information is. We keep a list by title, by grade, by curriculum application, and what type of modality and things like that. So we also have an annual parent fair where we invite our parents over, and they spend a Saturday with us, a Saturday morning, and where they can learn about the different software that we use. They learn about everything from special ed to love of reading to math, but there's also ed tech pieces that we invite our parents to. And we also have a parent and engagement community center, principals there, and we provide sessions in the afternoons and during the day.
So talk to your local district about what they do. For example, Portola Valley, did that transparent movement of putting everything on the website. Mm-hmm. And then we actually partnered with an organization called Learn Platform or Learn Trials, where we actually have a list of all resources on the website where parents can see, and each teacher lists all the apps they're using in their classroom. Mm-hmm. So there's software out there, there's vendors that will do it, but again, it's all kind of up to the each local district.
All right, anybody else? Right in the back here.
No, he's getting his steps in today.
Can you talk about your acceptance rate that the teachers have had with this new way of teaching?
Well, we started measuring that using a product by Bright Bytes, the technology and learning module, and we've never had an issue with beliefs in El Centro. We had issues with connectivity. We had issues with learning what the 4 C's are, how to manage a classroom. But did our teachers fundamentally believe that technology tools can enhance what they're doing in the classroom? From day one, yes. I think it's easier in elementary, I'll say that, compared to high school or higher ed. And it takes a lot of supports. It takes understanding what their needs are, asking them what they are, and building relationships with them. I'm a fundamental believer that anybody has a conversation with me, you're going to hear relationships 20 times. So that's how we've accomplished that. There are always those outliers. But we were just working with a gentleman who teaches history, and he's always known his PowerPoints. That's what he's always known. And we're adopting a new program. He was the first one to show me how he's using the digital assessments and the new learning management system because he understands and he sees the value in it. Did it take time? Sure. It took 5 years, but it took supports. And if the relationships are there, those come to fruition in time.
You need to make the teachers understand and be aware of how this truly affects student achievement and engagement and empower them. You can't be a higher up decision, say you need to do this, it's a mandate, but build, leadership teams around curriculum and technology and get them involved in decision making and what's going to be used. Putting on ongoing professional development events. We put on a week-long conference where we pay teachers $3,000 to come to for 5 days to learn all about how to integrate technology and how a wonderful motivational keynote speaker, not only this is how you do it, this is why you need to do it.
We have a question over here.
So to play off the question of how do we distribute these successes and these learning things to our communities, how would you propose that we could share that out beyond pockets of success?
Share what out? I'm sorry.
Share out the successes of the teaching methodologies, these mechanisms, these tools that leverage broadband. How do we promote that beyond just a success story here or there?
Obviously, having us present more conferences. No, just kidding. I think creating opportunities at the statewide level, regional levels, county offices, having county offices be involved a lot. County offices, for those who don't know, their role is to liaise from the statewide decisions to local regions and districts, and that's one of the focus areas of county offices. So how can county office of education, there's 58 in the state, kind of be the experts in the field to support those efforts?
Yeah, COEs, also conferences. Q does a great job in establishing that through its affiliate groups. So the technical side, I think taking advantage of those things and transforming your professional development within your agency. I think that's super crucial. to be able to share out those experiences. And in our case, our high school district is separate. So it's also building articulation committees within your own community. It is a grassroots effort. You can share those at a state level, but it takes us coming together to be able to share that and to provide support structures for those that need it.
And one thing, the K12HSN does send out weekly emails to educators who subscribe to the list with some great resources and best practices. Sure. And so they do, have a network across the state that does a great job with that as well.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I think we've reached our mark at 3:20.